If you're like me, I started fishing for bluegill and crappie and panfish like that. It's something that really, for me, never goes out of style. I still get excited by seeing a cork disappear and pulling up a hand-sized bluegill. Crappie or bluegill, either which one, got really large fins on their back, and so they'll push these fins up, and if you want to grab them without getting stuck, just run your hand across their back very gently, turn the hook out, that way the fish goes back, just no harm, no foul for you or the fish. With bass and bluegill and crappie, their eyes are oriented up, as is their mouth. If you see the mouth, when it opens, is oriented up, so they're gonna feed in an upward direction. And that's why you wanna drift those jigs over the top of them. So that jig should swim straight over the top of them, it's oriented up, and then they come up to hit that jig. Small and slow is a way that we always talk about catching fish regardless of species. So for panfish, it's the ideal way. Be patient, just swim it. Don't try to do anything fancy with it. It's a good tip for people that are fishing for smallmouth bass too. Don't try to overwork the lure, let the lure do what it's supposed to. Key to this is being patient, fishing it slow, let the fish tell you what they want, and don't give up on them. Sometimes if you just swim it all the way back to the shoreline or the boat, that's when they're gonna bite. I wanna fish the fish closest to me so that I'm not disturbing the rest of them. You can catch every fish in that area by doing that. One of the things I found is with bluegill, when you're fishing shallow, you pick them up pretty quickly. Crappie are notorious for never going really, really shallow. Shallow for a crappie is 3 to 5 feet. They love to be around wood, as do bluegill, but those bluegill will be open water feeders, and they also both school. So once you find them, you should be able to stay on them for a while. You know, another thing too, I think that people try to make too long a cast. When you're working with a shorter amount of line, it's actually easier on you, and you don't have to get way far off a fish most of the time. There's one. Feels like a bluegill. When you think about colors, panfish aren't different than any other fish you're going to fish for, and I usually try to match the conditions with the colors. For example, bright skies, clear water, and no breeze, I throw a very light, like a white with a silver flake tube. Sometimes I go to smoke and silver. When the water gets dirty, and a really good secret color for bluegill is black and chartreuse. I don't know why they like it, but it seems like any color of water they like that. This is called a black-nosed crappie. He's got that little racing stripe right down the front of his nose. In the spring, many times those fish will bed under a willow or overhanging tree, and if there's a hard bottom like rock or sand, they're gonna be there. One of the reasons they like the hard bottoms is because it incubates the eggs. Rock radiates the heat of the sun, and those are great spawning spots, and those fish will come back to the same places every year. The crappie spawn's a little bit more complicated. They go on early and they spawn on wood. Bluegill are the most fun, and they will start spawning when the water temperature gets to 70 degrees and you're on a full moon. And the really cool thing about bluegill is every full moon, when the water's above 70, they're gonna spawn again. Most of the time I'll release all my bass, but if you're gonna take some bass for the table, especially the smaller ones, you ought to keep 10 bluegill so you keep that place in balance. For me, crappie is what I call the 50% rule. I keep one, I release one, I keep one, I release one. I wanna have some fish when I go back. If you're just fishing for bluegill, can't hardly hurt the population. My rule of thumb is take what you can eat and release the rest. Wow. Hey, they don't get as big as bass, but a small assortment of lures, light line and a light rod, small fish and big fun. For Real Tips, I'm Joey Monteleone.